Hello and welcome to another fresh edition of News Across Nigeria, where we tell you what's happening now across the Nigerian Federation. I'm Olumide Macaulay. On today's program, the federal government heeds call of United Nations Environment Programme report, formally launches the cleanup of oil spills in Ogoni land. The Abia state government boosts state's emergency management as Governor Ekwazu donates ambulances to agency. And Nasarawa State Police Command preaches peaceful coexistence, brings farmers, residents and herdsmen to a discussion round table. We begin with the dawning of a new day in the Niger Delta region, where the federal government has formally launched the cleanup of oil spills in Ogoni land, as recommended in the United Nations Environment Programme's report. The flag-off was performed by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari, who was initially scheduled for the ceremony. Prominent Ogoni leaders have been extolling the federal government for embarking on the program, which is scheduled to last for 30 years.
The early callers here are indigenes of Ogoni land, led by prominent members of the community. The initial speeches flowed with gratitude.
The name of that one man that has changed our story for the better is President Muhammadu Buhari. Ably represented by Mr. Vice President himself, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Please put your hands together for him as you come here.
The program kicked off in earnest with the arrival of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who's representing President Muhammadu Buhari. First to mount the podium, however, is the Minister for Environment, Amina Mohammed. The minister says the launch is not cosmetic, as the federal government is ready to move into the implementation stage. Shell, on its part, promises to assist the government in the exercise.
It is now a collective responsibility. It will, from today on, require genuine partnerships. It will require that we build trust that we have lost over the decades. It will require transparency and accountability. And it will require proper representation of the people at the grassroots in what we do in investing in their future.
I want to assure Mr. President that the SPDC joint venture remains committed to actively participating along with other stakeholders to ensure that the cleanup is embarked on as soon as possible.
The host governor, Nyesom Wike, lauds the UNEP report, which is responsible for this launch, while UNEP, looking back at the journey so far, says its mission accomplished.
The UNEP report, which is the precursor to today's event, is significant for at least two reasons. First, it presents the best available and factually detailed documentation of the scale of the existing and continuing damage to the entire Ogoni environment and, by extension, the Niger Delta. Second, and most significantly, it presents a clear roadmap on the priorities of action by government, stakeholders and the international community in terms of cleanup, remediation and restoration of the damage that had accumulated over the years.
In the United Nations family, we are committed to stand by the government of Nigeria, by the people of Ogoni, and together with the partners in the SPDC also, to ensure that what is promised today, what is flagged off today, is truly something that everybody can be held accountable for.
In comes the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Reading out the President's speech, Professor Osinbajo says it's promise made and promise fulfilled. He, however, says the implementation should be a collaborative effort.
We are therefore laying a solid foundation today for the restoration of the fragile ecosystem of Ogoni land and the rest of the Niger Delta. Let this day mark the beginning of the restoration of not just the environment of Ogoni land, but of peace and prosperity to the great land and people of the Niger Delta. This cleanup is for the benefit.
At the moment, everyone has been waiting for the official launch of the cleanup program.
And to the glory of God.
The environmental restoration of Ogoni land will take up to 30 years if contaminated drinking water, land, creeks and important ecosystems such as mangroves are to be brought back to full productive health, as the UNEP report shows that pollution from over 50 years of oil operations in the region has penetrated further and deeper than many may have imagined.
Now, for more on this development, I'm now joined live from Ogoniland in Rivers State by an environment activist and one-time chairman of the activist group Friends of the Earth International, Mr. Imo Govt. You're welcome to News Across Nigeria. If you can hear me clearly, the presence of the Vice President is an indication of the federal government's commitments. What's your impression of today's exercise? Okay, we do apologize. Mr. Imo Govt, an environmentalist, was to give us his opinion on the cleanup exercise launched today by the federal government in Ogoniland. If we can restore an audio connection, we'll get back to him. In the meantime, in the southeast, the Imo State branch of the Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Agency project, that is NUMAP, has urged the federal government to complete pending World Bank-assisted projects at erosion sites in the state. The group made this recommendation while inspecting construction sites at Ijato South, Mbaise, and Olu local government areas of southeastern Nigeria.
Erosion, especially in the southeast region of Nigeria, has had a devastating effect on infrastructure and economic development. To address this challenge, the federal government, in partnership with the World Bank, formed the Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project. The team is here for a quarterly inspection of the commission sites in Imo State. But the contractors at Mbaise and Idiato local government areas report that the projects keep expanding to areas not previously identified without commensurate payment of funds.
From here also to this area, that contract goes down, and also this area. By the time we waited for them to come, not less than 4 months or 5, the thing is still hanging. Since January, it's still hanging. There's no approval, and the situation is like this, is deteriorating. And you see, if you look up here, what we have done is in compliance with the revised drawing so that we can do the correct thing now.
The delegation also inspects one more erosion site at Olu local government area, where the state project coordinator identifies climate change as an additional challenge to the progress of work.
Currently, we are having additional issues. These are issues that suddenly emerged on the sites that were not originally captured when the site was designed earlier in 2012, 2011 and 2012. And now some of those things are coming up and they must be given attention. They must be addressed. Otherwise, every effort put in here will be futile.
The team has promised to inspect more erosion sites in other parts of the state in the course of this visit.
You're watching News Track on, News Across Nigeria on Channels Television. When we come back, the Abia State government donates 4 ambulances for paramedical purposes in emergency response. Don't go away.